gonna get to know you. We're gonna talk it out. We're gonna get to know you and what you're all about. We're gonna get to know just what makes you feel alive. We're gonna get to know how you build, lead, and thrive. Build, lead, and thrive. Voices of the Androscoggin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Build, Lead, Thrive, Voices of Androscoggin, a podcast where we sit down with the people shaping our communities, our economy, and our future here in Maine. Each episode features in-depth conversations and dives into personal stories, highlighting the leaders, creatives, and entrepreneurs behind the region's economic and community vitality. I'm your host today, Sam Herriott, Director of Engagement here at the LA Metro Chamber, and I'm joined as always by our lovely producer, Mark Turcott. Today's conversation is an important and deeply human one that touches so many in our community, and I think more than we may realize. Today we're talking about the Black Poster Project, an initiative that honors lives lost to substance use and works to transform grief into awareness, prevention, and hope. Through powerful visual storytelling, it reminds us that this epidemic is not about statistics, it's about people, families, and community. Joining me today are two leaders helping bring this work to life in our region. First up, we have Ryder Dumont, who is the Executive Director of the Public Theatre and a Lewiston native who has returned home after a career spanning more than 30 years in professional theatre. His work has taken him across the country as a performer, director, educator, and producer. Ray is passionate about creating art that sparks conversation, brings people together, and strengthens communities. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Glad to have you here. And we also have at the table with us Catherine Ryder, who is the Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives at Spurwink Services and is a licensed clinical professional counsellor. Her work focuses on expanding access to care, reducing stigma, and improving outcomes in behavioral health. Her personal and professional experiences drive a deep commitment to awareness, compassion, and saving lives. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you both for being here. So, before we dive into the work itself and the Black Poster Project and really get behind that, we like to start with a few quick questions just to get to know you.
I feel like you're trying to get a psychological profile of us.
We may be. We'll see what we bring out.
Okay.
But it's the chance to do talk about what you've got going on, a bit about yourself so we get to know you and our guests and our listeners can get to know you. So I'm going to start with, what's something you've read, watched, or listened to recently that stayed with you?
Do you want to go?
Sure, I'll jump in. I actually just finished Kristen Hanna's The Women, which is a novel that is premised on women who served during the Vietnam War era, and they were nurses in Vietnam, but came back to a country that did not acknowledge that women served in Vietnam or that women served at all. And it's very compelling, and a significant portion of my work for Spurwink is focused on working with veterans and military, so it was really powerful to read a novel and then tie it back to the actual work that I'm doing.
Yeah, I feel like there are so many stories like that throughout history that we have no idea about, and that people are completely lost from the story that we tell ourselves about that period of history.
That's right.
Really interesting. Ray, what about you?
This is a rewatch for me. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a massive theater geek. I don't just love theater. I love the process and the nuts and the bolts. Mm-hmm. And there's a wonderful documentary that's called The Best Worst Thing That Could Happen. And it's about the genesis of the original production of Merrily We Roll Along. For those that are up to date, there's a revival of it that was filmed. There's a pro shot of it with Jonathan Groff and Daniel Radcliffe, and it's great. But they were originally back in the early 80s, like I think 1980, 81, they were actually going to ABC was going to do a documentary about the creation of the musical. So they had all this footage, and the documentary was never made, but it was unearthed later on by somebody who asked questions about it, and it was an original cast member, Lonnie Price, who's now a big director, and you were watching Hal Prince and Stephen Sondheim and these titans who had 1,000,001 successes through the 70s create a bomb musical. It was a musical that failed. And a very, very young and unfamous Jason Alexander from Seinfeld was in it, and it was truly one of the most inspiring documentaries, because first of all, the creation of any show. And there's a moment where he says, well, I have good news for those of you in the room. You're all in the show. And these young people just lose their minds, which makes me cry every time. I'm about to cry now. But it's also that even the greats can fail and recover from that. And it's really like it was right on the cusp of like a lot of new creativity that came from it. So I just find it inspiring. So every time I need a little jump start in my creativity or in my love for what I do, I watch that documentary. I have it ready to go anytime.
There's always growth and failure, right?
There's so much growth and failure.
Well, and I love the perspective now, looking back on it, that it was a failure at the time, but it has gotten a lot more success now.
Yeah, they went back
audiences.
And it was ahead of its time. It's very much like Chicago was. Chicago was a response to Watergate and to Nixon and to Vietnam and all those things. And it didn't do well back then. Revive it in the 90s where every horrible person in the universe is now a celebrity in front page news. Figure that out.
Yeah.
And suddenly it resonated and it's still running.
Yeah, so sometimes if you fail at something, maybe you haven't. You just have to wait.
Maybe it
30
just
years.
wasn't your time.
Wait
And let's face it, that we've all been there too. So,
For sure.
Yeah.
It inspires me every time.
So, next question to get to know you. What is a place or activity that helps you reset when life feels heavy?
You want to go first?
This one's easy for me. I'm much older now, but I still dance. And when I dance, I feel really, really good. Whether I'm dancing just for the heck of it, or choreographing a show, or teaching a class, which is always has its own joys and rewards, I always feel better when I'm doing that. Part of it is, oh my God, I can still do that. Not quite the way I used to, and I don't quite get the same altitude I used to get, but I can still do it, and it still brings me the same kind of joy. But I have to prepare for a certain amount of recovery time now. That's different. That has changed. But, there's that whole adage about that the dancers die twice. They die when they can't dance anymore, and then they die their natural death. And that's, and I'm by no means some great dancer. I didn't study it my whole life. I came into it very accidentally, but I made a life out of it. And doing that and coming back to it, anytime I have an opportunity, it just feels really good, and I just feel happy. Like, I can't wait to get to a rehearsal or a class. No matter how long my day was, I can't wait to get to that. And that's a really good place to be.
I almost feel emotional hearing you say that because I connect with that so much.
You certainly
personally.
do.
I haven't really danced in a long time, and I've just done a show which was very dance heavy. And yes, I felt my body needed the recovery time, and still maybe does, but I felt so amazing.
Feels good, doesn't it?
So good.
That's the best kind of exhaustion.
Yes.
It's my favorite kind of exhaustion.
Awesome. Catherine, what about you? Are you a dancer?
Years ago, yes, but no, not so much. And, I dance through the woods, so that's my happy place. The woods, the water. I have a kayak, and I'm dying to get it out on the water, but they're saying it's still too cold. So probably within a week or two, it'll be out there, and I'll just be paddling along under the sun, and with a little beaver that likes to swim alongside of me when I get out there. So really looking forward.
Did you name him? Did you give him a name?
Buddy.
Love it.
Buddy the beaver.
Yeah.
Buddy the beaver.
He comes out of one side of the pond when I'm out and just swims right over. I swear he's attached to me, so I'm truly enjoying
You're
it.
like one of those Disney characters.
Kind
Like when you
of,
wake
like
up,
Snow
do the
White?
birds bring you your robe?
They do. Usually it's my dog with her face right here.
That has its own joy.
It does.
Oh, that's the best kind of wake up.
I love that. Just the animals following Catherine.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so other than you being a Disney princess, what is something that people might be surprised to learn about you? What's that little inside thing that most people out there don't know?
Yeah, you know that little icebreaker you play called Two Truths and a Lie?
Yeah.
So I always tell people that I was born a boy as one of my two truths and a lie, because I was actually born in Wiesbaden, Germany. My father was a pilot in the Air Force and stationed there, and my mom waited too late to wake him up to get to the hospital, and so she delivered me en route in his white upholstered Volvo, to which he said, Patricia, please don't stain my white seats. Can you imagine?
Because that's the priority.
No.
As if she had any control over that.
So anyways, she delivered me in the wee hours of the morning, still dark, looked down, saw the umbilical cord, confused it with male anatomy, named me Raymond Francis. wrapped me in towels,
Great
gave me
name.
to the nurses at the hospital. I went one way, she went another, and when they brought us back together again, what do mothers do with their new babies? Count fingers and toes and check out, make sure everything's okay, right? And so when she opened up the blankets and the diaper, apparently everything wasn't okay because she kind of lost her mind. And
Ain't that a kick in the head?
it was a kick in the head. So where's my son? And so
And where was this?
in Germany?
What's the German word for oops?
I don't know.
Because I bet some nurse said it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
But for years growing up, if I was naughty, she'd say, "Well, you're not mine anyways. They swapped you out in the nursery."
gee.
But it got to the point where I was the spitting image of her, and she couldn't deny me anymore. It was all in good fun, I promise you. She was a lovely lady.
And got a new name, we
And
see.
got a new name.
Not here
yeah.
introducing you as
So
Raymond.
they switched me from my father's brother to his mother's name. Yes.
Oh, wow. I love that. That is something
That is
I
a
did
great
not know about
story,
you. We've known
yeah.
each other forever. Yeah. Something I don't know that people would be really surprised to learn. Well, I always say I'm the baby of the family, and everyone goes, yeah, that totally checks out. But I am a massive, massive nerd. I am a sci-fi comic book hero loving nerd. Give me Star Wars, give me Star Trek. I love them both equally for various reasons. Give me all the comic book heroes. I have a Superman tattoo on my arm. There's a reason for that. But, as silly and as over the top as it is, there's been some that have had some very important story beats that resonated with me about real life situations. And I think about some of those, and I will tell you, there was one night we were at the movies when the first Henry Cavill Superman movie came out, Man of Steel. And my son was very small. And the story's playing through, and he nudges me, and he says, "Daddy, Superman was adopted too." And I was like, okay, all right. So all my geekiness, there is something in there for somebody. There's something in there. So I'm a massive, massive nerd, and I'm proud of it.
Good.
Proud of it.
Proud of that nerd.
Yes.
Proud of you.
Yeah.
I think there's so many people that are those secret nerds. More people you meet out there who have that little nerdy or geeky obsession with something, because there's a lot of representation in that world.
Yes.
People see themselves in those characters.
Well, I'm about to do Shrek at Main State this summer, and I let your freak flag fly. That's what it's all about. Let
You're
it fly.
actually going to be Shrek?
No, I'm choreographing the TYA there, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Fun.
Yeah.
Okay, and last getting to know you question, which will shift us hopefully nicely into talking about our topic today. Who or what has shaped your perspective on the work you do today?
So that takes me way back to when I started at St. Joseph's College for my undergraduate degree. And I was required to write a paper for my philosophy class, which I remember thinking, philosophy was going to be such a drudge, and I actually fell in love with philosophy and then started to read different books from different people, and I accidentally fell upon Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And he was a survivor of the German Holocaust and had been a physician prior to having survived the concentration camps, and then later came to establish what is known as logotherapy, which is a type of clinical counseling. It's a theoretical perspective, which basically says to live is to suffer is to find meaning in life. And I think often we go through tremendous pain, certain events in our lives, losses, hopes and dreams that didn't pan out, but some of the most amazing growth. And I said that a little bit earlier, when things don't turn out the way we hoped for, if we can keep trudging through it, usually on the other side there's something that we can learn, and it helps us to grow. And so that was the underpinning of my clinical work for many years. And when we advance into the conversation further, you'll hear that some of the losses that I have experienced, it was that safety net and anchoring of understanding that if I put my mind in the right direction, I could grow from my experience and hopefully be able to help support other people along the way.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think we spend so much time trying to search for happiness and joy and constantly feeling good, and it's great to feel good and have those lovely moments, but we all go through pain or suffering in some sense, and understanding that is going to happen. It's expected. It's what it is to be a human and to be alive and to go through this world, and keeping that as an anchor as you navigate through it. I like that perspective. I haven't heard that before.
Well, thanks. I like it too. And it, when it's coming at you, you're going,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this again. But it is helpful.
So thank you.
I'm going to be a total mama's boy about it. My mother, when I chose this profession in my life, I used to come home and then go to New York for an audition or leave town to go do a show and all that. And she'd always say the same thing: go make it happen. Which is so basic. It's so basic. But when she says it, it's different. She says it better than other people do, I guess. I don't know. And she still says it. She's 90 years old and she still says it. She is, and I mean, even the people closest to me, God forbid they be angry for me with saying this, but when something good happens, she's the first call. There's certain milestones in my career as a performer. When I got the job, she was my first call. And then we'd cry together and have fun, and it was really great. But she always said, go make it happen. And it was just that thing that would just rattle in the back of my head while I'm doing what I'm doing. And, and she was there when I failed too. And I said, well, it didn't happen. She goes, well, it's just not your time then. And she just made it okay to succeed or fail. Didn't matter. The call was what mattered. The communication was what mattered. And I find myself offering that up to other people. Just that kind of, that you've got what you need. Now just go do it. And all you can do is what you can do, and the rest of the world is going to do what they do. And sometimes it's going to go your way, and sometimes it's not. What you shouldn't do is lose your mind if it doesn't go your way. And part of that is when it goes your way or doesn't go your way. I used to be in charge of an intern program, college, like early professionals, kids who are in college programs studying musical theater. And something we used to say, like we do internal casting within the company, and we'd say, we watch you all the time. We're here for you. We want to help you become professionals, and we watch how you behave when you don't get what you want, and how you behave when you do get what you want. And that rattles in my brain a lot because, be nice on the playground. It's too small of a playground. Everybody knows you. It doesn't take long. And if you grow a reputation of that, it's not a good thing. So that one I share with everybody. Be nice on the playground is one of those life lessons I always share when I say the stuff I do in my arts world applies to real life as well. Yeah. Just be kind, for God's sakes.
As easy as that. Just be kind.
Yeah, and I remember calling my mother saying something went wrong, and she goes, well, what are you going to do about it? And that was so amazing. It was so great. She goes, well, what are you going to do now? Because that's already done now, and it was very powerful. And to this day, she's my first contact when something good happens. Because, I'm like, and I literally start with, I made it happen. And that's the thing. That's the thing that I will always carry from my mother.
Well, in Ray's mother's words, we're going to go make it happen.
Amen.
And we're going to dive in.
Yes, we are.
That's my segue. Smooth.
Good segue.
Yeah, I didn't even know you were going to say that.
Well done.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about the Black Poster Project. So I gave a very high-level introduction to what it is, but you two know it better than most people in this community. So I'd love, for those who are hearing about it for the first time, who have no idea what it is, what is this? What should people know about it? How can they engage with it?
This is the manifestation of a mother's love and grief post losing her son to an overdose, and putting her grief into action. And she started small with a few other friends and made posters that were memorials to their beloveds. And the posters are quite beautiful. They're fairly large. They have a lovely photo of the family member, and then there's a narrative up in the corner that you can read. And it started in their own community, very small, and as people heard about it, they wanted to become part of it. And so, as you might imagine, it has rippled out, and it is now well known across the eastern seaboard, and I suspect it will expand to the west in short order. I had heard about it. Ironically and sadly, a dear friend of ours who you also know, Stephanie Gelinas, had lost her son to an overdose death a year before I lost my own son. And we were dear friends, and we were both struggling with children that were living with addiction and trying to find a path forward. And both of us had access to lots of services and knew where we could turn folks. And in spite of all of that, we lost both of our boys. And then, lo and behold, Stephanie and I showed up to do a presentation. And Ray
It was a chamber event.
It was a chamber event.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I hadn't seen Ray in years. We used to trip over each other at theaters in Portland. And there we were, hugging and saying hello and getting reconnected when we learned that Ray had lost his son about a year after I lost my boy. So there were three of us, all executive leaders in this community.
What were the odds we'd all be there that day? Like, it was the strangest thing, And I always say, we joined a club that we never wanted to be a member of. They presented the idea of the Black Poster Project to me, and I was like, I'm in. What do we do?
Yeah.
How do we make that happen? And it's incredible.
It is incredible. So Stephanie had already joined. I joined that year, and Ray joined shortly thereafter. And really what it is you submit a request to have a poster in this project, which is a silent memorial that moves from state to state and sets up in collaboration with whoever it is that's sponsoring it. And they now have over 900 posters, which...
It's amazing.
It really is. It's a sea of faces.
You should see them when they unload. It's all organized alphabetically. It is astounding.
It's incredible. Well, and if you think about it, it's, dipping your toe in the pond, because the year my son died, which was December of 2021, there were 100,000 overdose deaths in this country. So 900 is a fraction of that, and that was only 1 year. So we've lost an entire generation, and the vast majority of them are between 20 and 40 years old, and there's some outliers to that. But what we wanted to do, and it's, addiction work has been a huge piece of my professional life, and I'm very aware that we talk numbers, and people go, oh, that's awful, and then they move on to the next subject. When you walk into a room and it is a sea of faces looking back at you, it changes the number to a name and a face and a story about someone who is deeply loved in spite of their addiction. And that was our goal, was to change the vernacular, because there's so much assigning of blame, and people are moral failures, and they're just losers, and they made a choice, and that's their problem and not mine. Well, it's all of our problem when it means that our society is deeply impacted. And I'll stop there and let you jump in.
You're never over it. That's just a given. You're never over it. But you find the best way to move forward. And when it was presented to me, I knew that this was a live and in-person testament to these people's existence. And as Catherine said, every one of them loved by somebody. Yeah. And there are sections that are sibling groups too, which is
siblings, parents, children.
Yeah, all the family, so that it was in the family. When this presented itself to me, and that we knew there was a problem, we knew there was something going on here, I had no frame of reference for it. That's not what my experience had been. And just having that all unfurl in front and go through all the processes, like, in and out of incarceration, and this and that, and very strange evenings, and disappearing, and when that is all put in one room, every one of those people had a story. Every one of them was a story. And I'll tell you, I approved the copy on my son's poster, the big photo and the write-up. And we were helping to set them up, and I was way across the room, and it's in alphabetical order. And his last name began with M. His last name was my ex-husband's last name, Mondor. And I think it was Stephanie that came over. She goes, they're up to the high M's. He's going to be coming out soon. And I saw it for the first time, and it was so real. And I just sat there and stared at him. And it was so beautiful. And I looked around the room, and there's so many just like him. And every one of their stories is different. And not one of these people was a degenerate or this or that. They were people who had troubles. And they all come from different places, you know. I know the source of some of my son's issues because we adopted him, and I know some of that, but you can't control it. It's not something, you know, and you spend the first, I don't know what your experience was immediately after, but you keep wondering, did I do something wrong? Where was the tipping point? And that's not, you can't think that way. Mm-hmm. You can't think that way. He lived his life, and it was sadly so short. And that's something that you don't get over, but you can celebrate what he was. And that's what we're doing. We're celebrating who these people were. Most of the posters talk about the things they excelled at, or the things they loved, or, you know, he was the favorite uncle of this person, or the favorite, you know, his grandmother couldn't get enough of him, and she did this, and, you know, she could cook like nobody's business. It was, you know, and they're celebrating all the amazing things that these people were, with that caveat that we've lost them. There's moments that day that were very sad, but I have to tell you, 90% of it was joy. It was joy. It was celebration. It was, you know, trying to make sense of everything and trying to think positively about what great things these people brought into our lives.
Well, and do you remember so Dee Gillen is the founder of the project and the woman who lost her son that started this. She said to me, because I walked in and I expected to see my son's poster. What I did not expect is they pinned his poster, and they're fairly good size, to the front of the podium where I would be speaking. And I walked in and I dropped to my knees. It just literally took my breath away. And she came up to me and she put her arms around me and she said, I know this is really hard and you're really feeling it right now. She said, but wait a few moments. You're going to start to feel all these angels around you in a very good way. And it happened, right?
It
Anyone
sure did.
who was there said they could feel the presence of all those we had lost in the room with us. And it was really remarkable. And the other thing they do is they have a breakout section for the military. So anyone who served in the military is in a section that highlights their service. And then this year, there will be a breakout of all Maine posters. So last year, I think we had maybe 19, 20.
Yeah.
This year, we're expecting somewhere in the realm of 50. So people will be able to go straight in and find their loved ones right away without having to go through the alphabetical sections.
I knew I should have brought tissues to this.
You think you got a handle on it, and then you start talking about it, and everything goes to hell. But it's mostly good, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It strikes me that the joy that's coming out, even through talking through the sadness and the grief and the huge societal challenge we have in this, I still feel the joy from you both talking.
They were amazing
about
kids.
your kids. And about the other
God.
people's children and brothers and sisters and mothers and family members in the room.
Well, and it's interesting that you referenced the joy, because I think for a while you're afraid to express your joy at their life, because when people ask you how your child died and you say they died of an overdose, it used to be people would drop their heads and not look at me. It's not like they died in an accident or they died of a medical disease. Oh, they died of an overdose.
Yeah.
And so I don't ever want to have to feel that way. And one of the things that we feel as parents who have lost a child, which should never happen, right, is that their name and their face live on. And so with our posters in this silent memorial, that poster is there in perpetuity.
Yep.
Unless you ask for it to be removed, it is there and it goes everywhere. So everywhere they travel, I look them up on their website and I find Colin, because they always have a photo with a military breakout, and I can zoom right in on him and say, oh, he's in New Jersey, oh, he's in Florida, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah. My kid gets around more than I do these days.
That's right.
Seriously.
More well-traveled. Well, hearing addiction and substance use is a huge societal issue in this area, in this state, in this, all over the country, all over the world even. It's impacted a lot of people. And when we look at tackling these big societal issues as a group, as a community, as a society, we tend to ground ourselves in the data and the numbers, because that can lead us places and can help us make decisions. But this is so focused on the human element. And I hear you both talking about that human element. And it strikes me that it's almost an intersection of both of your professional
Our
works
worlds.
as well, the clinical side and the art side. And seeing those two things come together and be that really powerful storytelling. Why is that so important when we're tackling this kind of issue? We want the data, we want the numbers, we need that to drive us. Why is it still so important that we talk about that human element?
I think data is great when you want to know what, but what about the why? You know, I mean, why is this happening? You know, and there's probably a wide range of answers to the why. You know, when you don't want to get so caught up in data that you lose the source of it, you know, why? And then from my standpoint in the arts, it's the coping, it's the healing, it's the understanding. I have to say, from a human level, you realize I half joked about becoming part of a club I never wanted to join, but I'm not alone. I can talk to people who've also lost children, and we have enough in common that we can talk about it. And most of the time we end up talking about our kids and telling each other the dumb things they used to do, or the funny things they did, or something we did together. It morphs into happiness and healing. And the process of doing something like this brings the healing to a real visceral level. It's live and in the room, you know, and they're there with us.
Well, the fact that you just at a chamber event of all places managed to find two other people in that same club with you.
I went to a breakout room. I had met Stephanie a few times. I knew Catherine really well. And as the thing broke up and people were going on, we were the three in the room, you know, and we were catching up, you know, after all the years. And Stephanie was there, and then the conversation went that way, and then I added my 2 bits, and all of a sudden there we were talking about it.
I'm sure there's so many other people out there who have lost someone in a similar way, who either from their own challenge managing through it, from the stigma that is out there of talking about it openly, may struggle to find other people who are sitting in that same camp with them and can connect with. And this seems like it's a really great place to bring people together who may not have that in their community.
Absolutely. And to go back to your point about how do we change the narrative? So a lot of my work is getting out in front of city councils, going to the state legislature, advocating for harm reduction. And a lot of folks don't know what harm reduction is, and those that do, some don't support it because they think that basically you're just giving people permission to use, which is not at all the intent. And I will tell you, for many years, I was opposed to it because I didn't understand it. And, you know, a decade or more ago, I started to really dig into it, and in conversations with my own son, who was suffering greatly post his return from combat theater, where he was in the Army infantry front lines and saw and did a lot of really ugly things, and just came back with huge moral injury and post-traumatic stress, in addition to physical injuries. And he could not quell the trauma from all of that, and substances were the only thing that put it to rest. And I think we are a society that is often riddled with challenges that people can't overcome for a number of different reasons. They have traumatic events from their childhood, and you use a substance once, maybe because you're experimenting or you're with a group of people that encourage you to use it, and you use it. But the end product is that you go, oh, all that stuff that lives in my brain is not there when I'm using. And so we have an understanding that some folks are really addressing, they're self-medicating, if you will. So they're taking care of what they haven't been able to take care of in other ways, and probably because they didn't find the right pathway. That being said, if you just tell someone stop, it doesn't work like that. Some people do. I mean, there is definitely a percentage of people who can just stop cold turkey and they're done, and that's terrific. But then there are other folks over here that they're probably always going to have to be using something like methadone or Suboxone, and then there's people all the way across the middle, and the goal is to figure out who that person is and what is the right pathway for them, and how do we get them there and keep them alive for another day while we're trying to help them find their path to recovery. So it's a conversation, it's education, it's bringing humanity into it, because it's so easy to sit there and look at the ugliness of addiction, and boy, it's real. We've lived it.
It's horrible.
You know, one of the things that Ray shared when he spoke last year was that he had said some things to his child. I said some things to my child that I hold deep regrets for in the final months of his life, because it had gotten really, really bad.
I was angry. I was so, like, in a place so deep. I'd never been so angry. And I directed it all at him. I was so mad at him. I realized that I wasn't mad at him. I was mad because what I had in mind wasn't playing out the way I had dreamed it. And I didn't have the tools to cope with that. It just wasn't there. So as Catherine said, I mean, we both confided in each other. We've said things that, boy, we wish we could take back. But we have to believe they know that that's not where we were. That was a snapshot of a moment. That's all it was. You know, but once in a while, when I'm by myself and I'm quiet, I allow myself to go to sad, if that's where I need to go. And I say, God, I wish I hadn't said that night. Or why did I use those words, you know?
But if you're like me, you say it right out loud. Like I talk to my Colin all the time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I do too. I say goodnight to Ethan every night.
Those situations, there are so many emotions from everyone involved, and it's so visceral that knowing what the right thing to say, do, is almost impossible.
Do you want to end a conversation? It's when you run into someone and they say, your son must be grown up by now. And I'm like, not really. And the conversation dies. And I realize, and then I feel like I'm doing damage control. I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, I had a person crying in my face one day because she felt so horrible about that he was gone, and felt so horrible that she brought it up, and it, like, as if I hadn't, like, it after it happened, I never mentioned it again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I live with this every day. I have his pictures in my room. I say good morning. I say good night. I'm good, but then you find that you're doing damage control with these poor people who just walk into it, and as you say, they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
You know, what are the words? What do you say?
Yeah, even people who have been through it, who work in it, who live and breathe it every day, still don't have the exact right thing to say. And so the people on the outside...
We don't want to lapse over into thoughts and prayers, because we know how far that goes, you know, out in the world.
Absolutely.
So, but the fact of the matter is, it's just sometimes you have to do a little care and feeding with people that aren't up to date. You know, you figure everybody is, because with social media and this and that. And I every year I post on his birthday. May 16th is what we call Forever Day. That's the day he was adopted.
Yeah.
We celebrate that every year, even though he's not here. But I always mention it. So I figure everybody knows. Well, not everybody knows.
Not everyone knows how to approach these conversations at all, whether they have personal experience or are speaking to someone with that personal experience. Most people have no idea how to even start this conversation. And if we can't start the conversation, we can't figure out how to improve it or make it better or tackle it.
And I think they're afraid of making us uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, I got a high threshold for uncomfortable. It takes a lot to make me uncomfortable. I'll talk about any aspect of it if somebody genuinely wants to know. Because sometimes they ask the hard questions, and you know, sometimes it's like, did you see him? Or did you, you know, that kind of stuff. I was out of town when it happened. It was wretched. It was terrible.
Yeah. And as a society, we have to be able to hold some space in our own, like, thoughts, in our own emotions, in our own, like, actions, how we walk through the day for those things, to be able to start tackling them. I know we all hear from, whether it's on a social media comment or it's people talking, and we see this substance abuse as being such a challenge, but there's so many misconceptions from people who have either never experienced it, or maybe they are in the throes of it with themselves, a loved one. Just knowing what is the best practice is so challenging. We're not taught about this. It's not talked about as openly. So there are a lot of those misconceptions. What is the biggest misconception that you would love to dispel and have the stories that are told through this project dispel some of it?
I would say the greatest misconception is that it's a moral failure. It's a brain disease. Drugs change your brain wiring, and there is plenty of research with PET scans to show us that that happens. So it creates all of the receptors in your brain get plugged up except for the one that wants that rush, that stimulation, and it's the pleasure center of the brain. And so it craves in a way that, I mean, I don't know about you, but there are certain things that I crave, like a cup of coffee in the morning. And if you tell me I can't have that, I'm going to start losing my mind a little bit. And
It's a
just
physical
coffee.
reaction.
It's
Yeah,
a
you
little bit
feel
of a
it.
physical
You feel it.
reaction.
Yep.
So, and that's nothing compared to having put a drug, especially an opioid, in my body, right? And so your brain gets rewired. It wants to be rewarded with that drug, and if you're not getting it, then, you know, pardon the proverbial expression, but the poop starts to hit the fan,
Yeah.
and people do bad things when they're in that space. So if we can start working with them, if we can meet them where they're at, if we can keep them safe and alive while we're continuing to move them towards a path to recovery, which we see all the time in our work. I mean, we feel that we have excellent outcomes from the work that we're doing and would like to see more people go down that path. If you just suspend everything, people are going to die. They're going to keep dying.
Yeah.
And that's my worry point is, you know, and again, there is that percentage of folks over here who can just stop and say, I'm done today, go cold turkey, and they're going to make it. But a lot of others will not.
I think it's really interesting what you said about the moral failing. I think we apply moral black and white judgments
We
to
do.
so much in life. I've left like the dishes out and I'm like, that's morally bad, as if that's a terrible thing.
Right.
And it's not. It's just where you are at that day.
It's just life.
It's just life.
That's right.
And taking away that shame of something being morally good or bad and focusing on the person and the science behind it that you talked about from that clinical perspective.
That's right. And I'll tell you, when somebody feels respected in spite of what's happening, and they know they don't feel good about themselves, you know, I can remember my son telling me people think I'm just a piece of you know what.
Yeah.
And that wasn't necessarily true, but that's how he saw himself, and that's how he felt. And people don't move forward when they feel
Yeah.
like way.
Shame is, I don't know if there's anyone out there who can say shame has been a strong motivator for them. Shame is not a motivator.
Right.
Holds back any type of growth or progress for all of us.
I agree.
One of the times that Ethan was incarcerated, he was able to call every other night. And I changed my schedule around because I was the dad of choice. I got the call every night around 9:30, 10 o'clock every night. And he had a certain amount, like an account of how much money they could spend, and we could
Yeah.
put money on the account so he could call and all this stuff. And I'll tell you, those were some of the best conversations we ever had. Some nights he'd call up crying, some nights he'd call up and we would just laugh ourselves silly until the time was up. But sometimes he'd say, it was one particular night, I don't know if there was something in my voice. I didn't mean to imply anything, but he said, I just want you to know you and Dad gave me a great life. You gave me a great life. And what I did is not on you. He literally said those words. And I think he just felt I needed, well, I don't know if he meant them or not, but I think he sensed that I needed to hear that. And we would have these amazing conversations. And, you know, he'd tell me, and then it got into, do you want to know what happened 2 years ago when I was he wanted to fill me in. Are you ready to hear this? You know, but we had amazing conversations those nights. And I would wait for my phone to ring, and I saw the phone number, and I knew that it was him. Yep. And it was a year later that I realized if I just hit a certain button, I didn't have to listen to, you're receiving a phone call from the Cumberland County Jail. And he thought that was so funny. He goes, did you even listen to it in Chinese? I'm like, yes, I certainly did.
All the languages.
I listened to all the languages, and then I would finally, it would click, I'd hear it click, and then I'd hear, hey, Dad, you know, and then we'd just start talking. And it was great. It was great. Yes. And that was like, because he was clean at that point and clear, but in jail, you know, and he was able to really articulate how he was feeling, and we had great chats.
It's amazing.
It was nice.
Yeah. Ray, I'd love to ask you from the arts perspective, because this, obviously the Black Poster Project is telling a story, but it's art. We're bringing art through this storytelling. A lot of arts organizations, a lot of people want to tell stories about these difficult topics, but they want to do it in a way that's responsible. And
Sure.
that they're doing it well, they're doing justice to the topic that they're talking about. How can organizations keep telling that story in a way that's respectful but still impactful and
Well,
gets
I
the
mean,
word out there?
from the theater standpoint, I mean, theater is storytelling. So that's number one. We have to tell a story. And some stories are going to be haha funny, and some stories are going to be more serious. Some of them are going to be, they run the gamut. Particularly like at the Public, for instance, we did a play last year that dealt with a child trying to understand her mother's suicide attempts. And it's brought up. And literally the actor says that was on this day was the day she succeeded. And it's played out on stage. And it's just this actor telling the story, and she used the audience for parts of the storytelling. Well, I said, that's going to bring up some things, and we partnered, Catherine and I, and Spurwink, and we brought people over who could speak to that if somebody felt either triggered or concerned or inquisitive and they wanted to ask questions. They're not going to ask the executive director of a theater who has no background in this. We think we're pretty nifty, but we're not clinicians, And so we were able to put somebody at the theater every night just in case somebody wanted to talk. And then for the talkbacks, we had somebody on stage so that if a clinical question were to come up, it could be answered by a person who actually understands that. And after one of the talkbacks, I saw a couple kind of walk to the side with the clinician, and they were together for about 20 minutes, and it was about concern for their child and just presenting some thoughts. And we need to be there for them. We're doing a play that opens in a minute. It feels like it's in a minute, but it touches on the topic of domestic abuse, domestic violence, and it's a true story. So we are working with certain organizations so that we have somebody there just in case somebody wants to talk. The thing that works with the theater that might not work in every other realm is that we tell the story and the audience will take what they want from it. The tipping point, though, is when a person in the audience sees themselves on stage. They see something happen to that person, and they say, that's my story. And it can happen with someone who has experienced domestic violence. It can happen with somebody who has experience with suicide. It can be, that guy is just like my father. It can be as simple as that or as complex as something very serious. And that's what I think the responsibility of the theater is to present it. But if you know that something might be, might trigger, that you act responsibly. And we have these amazing organizations in this community. Partner with them. It really isn't that big a deal. It's not hard. And they're overjoyed to partner. They're like, thank you for telling this story. We'll have somebody there every night. Yeah,
that's something that has really struck me since being in this community. I'm from a really big city. Originally, I'm from London. Huge. This is a much smaller community, and it has struck me so much since being here that the organizations, like the wraparound support organizations that we have here, are so embedded in the community and the other organizations doing other things. Like we see Spurwink everywhere. You're weaved into the fabric of what we're doing, which is how it should be, because the things that you're dealing with or supporting are weaved into the fabric of this community. And so having them not just be like, the support services are over there, you can go and get them if you need them, is never going to be successful. Right. But weaving them into the art and partnering with organizations like the Public and being there makes it so much stronger.
I always say it's great that we entertain, but we have a bigger responsibility than that. We can't just be an arts organization on Maple and Lisbon. We need to be a citizen in our community. And by doing that, that means opening our doors to stories like this. And, we also partner with Maine Inside Out. I found them via another event over another event, and this person told me about this person, just like you do. You network and you meet people. But that's for people who are coming out of incarceration and are rebuilding their lives. well, I have a little skin in that game. I had someone who was incarcerated, and the work they're doing is incredible. So we're opening our doors to let them do their new play on our stage.
Yeah, it was amazing.
In June, and they're doing their brand new one in June.
New one in June.
We're so excited. It's not even fully written yet. I'm so excited.
Okay,
it's like
I'm very
workshop.
excited
It's gonna be great. But the fact is, we offer a place to present these ideas in a relatively safe place. You're not, you're partaking. How you intersect with the arts and how the next person next to me intersects with the arts could be entirely different.
Well, and I think the other thing you brought, Ray, to Black Poster Project presentation last year was I asked you to use your arts background to look at the visual layout of the facility, how we stage the different events. So we have a bagpiper that opens the event and moves through the different aisles of the facility, followed by a young staff sergeant in uniform who plays trumpet right behind the bagpipes. We had performers singing on the stage throughout the program. We had a formal program, and Ray kind of helped us choreograph all of that in a way that I think really worked both visually and pacing-wise.
And we wanted to find a way, because it's open all day, and so people can move in casually.
Yeah.
But we wanted to sit, like, where in the day can we get a critical mass of people to not just show but tell, and tell our stories and make it special, make it feel like they're all in the room. And it really did. I mean, every one of us spoke, and the fact that I got through it, as I look out and my mother's sitting there and my siblings and my nieces and nephews, they all came, and it was so magnificent to see them, and I literally walked, when they arrived, I walked them in and brought them to Ethan. And my mother's literally like, hi, Ethan. And like, that's how I was too. I think when it was all kind of winding down, I think I sat in front of his poster for a half an hour just because I felt like I was with him. And I think doing the program piece of it helps kind of bring it all together. It kind of gives a reason to get the most amount of people in the room and really tell the story.
I love hearing you both bring your individual backgrounds and expertise to it, and I think all of us bring our own backgrounds and thoughts to it. Like I studied politics and history and things like that, and I'm listening to this and being like, I've seen how in history art changes society, changes perception, changes policy, changes what happens.
That's right.
And that loop keeps happening.
And important conversations happen.
Yes.
I've frequently joke, and it's not really a joke, the third act of any play is the drive home. Because you talk about it.
Yeah.
It could be good, bad, or indifferent. Hopefully not indifferent. At least feel something.
Yeah.
I'd rather they hate it than feel nothing.
That's right.
But the fact is, conversations start, and sometimes they're very funny. We did a play about someone who has a do-over. It's called Now and Then, and the future man comes back and says to the guy, don't propose to her, don't propose to her. And there was this whole thing. And it was very funny, but very thought-provoking. And this couple was leaving, and I'm always in the lobby saying, thank you for coming. And the guy says, I wonder what I would do with a do-over. And she said, anything you want to share? And I'm like, oh, that's going to be a terrible drive home. That's going to be a wretched drive home.
Yes, for sure.
Oh, so bad.
It could have gone the other way.
Yeah.
Right, you don't know. It could have been an amazing conversation.
Yeah, it could have gone the other way. But the fact is, people will talk about these things. It's not working in a vacuum. It's the start of something. It's not the end of something. It's beginning. And, we can do the things that entertain, but if we can do something that maybe someone in the audience will say, that's me, that's my story, that starts a conversation.
Yeah. So that's part of this project's impact, is to get people talking, people who maybe have misconceptions, don't know anything about this, to start that conversation. What kind of response have you already seen from the community, individuals, family? What impact has this already been making?
Yeah, great question. So both years we've been funded through a grant award. Last year was Maine Health Access Foundation. They funded the entire project. This year we're bringing them back for 2 full days. Last year it was 1 full day. And we've received a grant from the Maine Humanities Council, and we're awaiting another grant. So I won't say what that is just yet because we're pretty confident, but it hasn't happened. That being said, we have 1 full day that is not open to the general public and it's dedicated to student populations from across the state of Maine. And we're working actively with Dave Packham from Students Empowered to Independency. And you may know Voices of Hope, The Rugged Road to Recovery. He was the executive producer for that as well. And we really want to bring the students in a very thoughtful way with counselors from their schools, with our people there, to support them if needed, and do a program that is geared specifically to them with no parents in the room. They'll know, obviously, that their students have attended. Second day is open to the general public, and we will advertise that broadly. And both days will run from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. with a 1-hour formal program in the middle where we'll speak and other folks will speak as well. And the whole goal is really, again, to raise awareness, to reduce the stigma, to have people understand that this isn't a moral failure, it's a biological disease and a brain disease, and that we can do better if we work together. So change policy, find funding, continue to do the outreach so that people feel heard and validated and respected, and then we can help them to figure out what their pathway to recovery is.
And that's the goal, isn't it? That we spark the conversation, but that conversation transitions into some action. For people listening to this who may want to attend, they may want to get involved, but what action should people take away that they could do in their lives to support this?
I think you walk away with a new understanding about this. And 1 week, 1 year, 1 decade down the road, somebody brings it up, and you know more about it, and you dispel any kind of misconception or stigma about it because you've had an experience that has changed the way your heart reacts to that, or your brain. And I think, we want people to understand that these kids, mostly kids, a lot of kids, that they were actually people. They weren't statistics. They were actual people with real challenges, and that it's not something that we need to be ashamed of about our boys. That it's part of our journey, part of our story on this funny little planet we're on. And and what you do with that information is very important. And we're hoping that people will come and they'll understand that this is a huge, like a brain trust, an incredible group of people that never got the chance to do all the things they might have done. And isn't that just ridiculous? That I think about just the wit and the intelligence and the charm of my kid, and I'm like, nobody's gonna see that anymore. And it makes me so sad. So instead I go the other way and celebrate that he had all those things. But we hope when people come that they take it in and they realize this is a real thing, and it's something that needs to be talked about, and we're not going to drop our heads when it comes up, and that you shouldn't either. Ask your questions. Find out about these kids and about the problem in this world. Because it's everywhere.
That's right.
It is everywhere.
Well, and I think if you read an obituary and you see unexpected death, in my mind, that's one of two things. Someone died by suicide or they died of an overdose. Yeah. And folks are not comfortable, or perhaps they're ashamed to say as much. And I remember talking with my son and telling him I was terrified that he was going to die. And I said, I don't know how I'll survive if you do. And then he did. And we had talked several times about truth-telling. And he always said to me, Mom, I want you to use my life as an example to help other people to make different choices. And the funny thing is he couldn't stop using himself. But he was amazing when somebody else was trying to stop using. He would be right at their side and giving them milk instead of a beer or whatever it was. And I used to look at that and think, and where does that come from, right? And so how do we talk about not lives lost from despair, because these are called deaths of despair. That is the term that has been applied to it, to lives full of promise, right?
Yeah.
The lives that they might have had, the lives that people could still have if we can all get on board with this and figure it out.
It's amazing to hear that your son had that insight and forethought of what impact his life could have beyond him being there.
That's exactly
we
right.
imagine, I sometimes imagine people who are struggling with addiction to not necessarily have that awareness or insight into...
And to be clear, when he was in active use, he did not have that insight.
Right.
But when he was clear, when he was in a period of recovery, we could talk at length about really important things like that. And, he knew. He used to say to me, "You've stuck by me through all of this, and I don't know why, because I've, tortured you in some ways." And it was true. I mean, I lived in constant fear of finding him dead one day when I came home, or in the morning when I woke up, because he lived with me the last 4 years of his life. And you think you're ready, right? You think you're ready because you're watching it unravel in front of you. But when you get the word that they're actually gone, it is soul-crushing. And I hope we can prevent other people from experiencing that. That is the other big piece of this. Because
when awareness creates, not readiness, but you'll see things more clearly. I actually, funny you said about he helped others, even in his state. I got the strangest message from a woman I'd never met in my life after I posted something about Ethan passing, and she said, "Ethan told my son to stop it. Just stop it. Don't go down the path I'm going." And I said, "Dare I ask if your son is still with you?" She goes, "Yes, and he's fine, and he's doing well." And I said, "Terrific." That answered.
That's a gift.
That was all I needed. That was all I needed. He did something so good, even amidst all that darkness. But he had a great heart, he really did. He loved his friends. He was fiercely loyal to them. I didn't particularly like all of them, but that's none of my business, But he really, I was so pleased to hear that. I was almost relieved to hear that. And I was very proud of him.
As we're on this kind of hopeful note, I'm going to bring us one last question, and then we'll talk about the details of the project to wrap it up. For both of you, what is something that gives you hope in this work right now?
I would say what gives me hope is I doubled down after Colin died, and even when I gave his eulogy, I spoke about harm reduction as a tool to prevent this from happening to other families. And it was during COVID when we had his funeral service, and they allowed people to, it was later in COVID, so people had to attend with masks on, but we filled the place and the undercroft of our church. And I knew people that were sitting out there, like Stephanie, who had lost family members already, and I knew others who had family members that were struggling. And I wanted everyone there to hear that there were opportunities for us to save lives. And so I focused my energy a bit on that, and then in my work, that was when we were standing up the first harm reduction initiative here in Lewiston, the syringe exchange program. And I know that it sometimes gets a bad rep, but I have to tell you, we get to see up close and personal people who have been struggling with addiction for years. There was one woman who had had 43 overdoses and had to be recovered with Narcan in a year, in just 1 year. And everybody had basically thrown their hands up and said, and our team didn't, and kept going out and kept going out and kept going out. And guess what? She's a person who is in full recovery today. And it's that not giving up. I mean, people are used to folks giving up on them. And, as a mom who was living it, I get it. The exhaustion and the overwhelming sensations you experience, I can understand how some people just say, enough, I'm not doing this anymore. But, our staff, they get to switch out, so there's some renewed energy. And we have people tell us all the time, you held hope for me when I had no hope for myself. And it makes all the difference. And so that's what I hope will come from all of this, that people will be more open to the conversation, to better understanding what does harm reduction really mean. Because at first blush, it looks like we're just giving people products to use illicit substances, right? And that is not at all the intention.
Right.
For me, I've spent a lot of time working with young people. I worked in arts education and so forth, and if we're talking get them while they're young, these kids who are challenged and have these things happening in their lives, and if you do one good thing, it's the whole thing about a ship. If you change just by 1 degree, by the time you get here, you're in an entirely different place than where you were heading. And I've seen firsthand, I saw this beautiful little girl. It was when I was working at a Gunkwit Playhouse. She came in, and first day of her summer program, she said, "I'm home. I'm home." She was the cutest thing. It's like 9 years old. "I'm home." And I saw her mother when she picked her up at the end of the day, and I said, she said the cutest thing. She walked in and said, "I'm home." She goes, "That means more than you think it does." She is horribly, horribly bullied at school. And here we valued her. And her whole perspective changed because suddenly people thought she was great. And in there, she thinks she's great. And she thinks she's worthy and valid and all the things that we want our kids to do. In meetings with our senior staff, I used to say, the goal for me is when they leave us that they feel like they're 10 feet tall. And that I stick with that. And I say that everywhere I go now. They stole it from me and put it on their marketing one year. I was not pleased, and then I realized I was touched. But
did they put your name behind
no,
Like the word is getting out.
And it was fine. And good. We want parents to think that we're going to do this for them. We had a little girl, very little. It was a 5 to 7 year old program, and we got a call like an hour before the parents would be arriving with the kids. So we're getting a call at 7:30 in the morning. The mother says, "I've enrolled my daughter in the program, and she is speech delayed, and she might not want to do any of this." And we're like, "Why did you sign her up?" But okay. And I said, "Don't panic. We got this covered. I'll make sure the teaching artists all know." And I said, "We have crayons and drawing paper and coloring books. If she doesn't want to do the show, she can go over there and do that, and we'll make sure she has a good time. I promise you." So she came in and cute as, oh my God, so cute. And she was holding a little doll from that movie Encanto. I don't know the movie, but I understand it was quite lovely. So anyway, one of my teaching artists said, "I'm going to warm them up. I'm just going to do a little like aerobics class to warm them up, make them jump up and down, and hopefully tame some of the first day energies so that we can actually do a show with them." And she said, she's on her phone, she goes, "Oh, no kidding." So she starts the song, and it's from Encanto. And this kid comes running at her, waving the doll, and she goes, "Yes, that's from this. And she goes, "Do you want to do this with me?" And she put her next to her, did the warm-up with her, the whole 9 yards. This speech-delayed child, I came back at lunchtime, she was sitting eating lunch talking to the other kids. Like, because we opened a gate, and we got her where she exists, where she's at right now, and we just made it easy for her to go in, and she didn't realize she was doing something hard. And I wonder where she is right now, I wonder how she's doing. But she had the most amazing week, and there were 4 kids that had to squeeze these ducks that made noises, and she beat the crap out of that duck. I just remember her squeezing this thing because she was so excited to be there. And I think, if we turn on these switches in some of these kids, isn't that something? Isn't that amazing? Because maybe it'll steer them to either a group of kids that will make them feel like they're worthwhile and they might not engage in certain things, or their brains will be feeling good and that they're not going to need any other kind of substance to make their brains feel better.
And that reminds me, on the dedicated student day, which again is not open to the general public, there will be young people, and I mean young people over the age of 18, but still very close to that, who are in recovery a year or two, and they are exceptional speakers and exceptional advocates, and they're going to be sharing their stories and talking about how others could make different choices or choices that they may need to make now.
And that's great because they're hearing it from their peers.
That's exactly right. I mean, if I get up there, I'm grandma. They're probably not going to want to hear a whole lot from me, so I will not be a speaker.
If we go up, there'll be a lot of eye rolling. They're gonna be like, "Ugh,
especially
sit down." Oh my God, they want nothing to do with me. Sit down, Gramps.
That work is then like continuing through generations, and so it's not something that we are working so hard on now that will just end.
That's right.
It will keep going.
It's a continuum.
It's a continuum.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay.
And if we get one, it was worth it.
That's exactly right.
That's
We'd
all
like
we're
a few
asking.
more, but
we'd like more than one
Yeah.
because we're greedy. But honestly, if it can just change somebody's trajectory,
Yeah.
amen.
Amen.
Okay, so when is the Black Poster Project coming? When should people be ready?
So the general public day is September 19th, so we still have some good lead time, and it will be held once again at the Pathway Vineyard out on Outer Lisbon Street. They have a phenomenal space. We broke down 750 of these chairs that attach to each other, heavy buggers.
Oh my God.
Stacked them all up, loaded them. Roopers lent their truck. Last year, I believe they're doing it again this year. And we loaded it in the parking lot so we could get these posters in, because the posters stand about 4.5 feet high, probably
fill a
3
room.
feet wide, and they're back to back, and they literally fill the room with the exception of that small center space in front of the stage area. So open 9 to 4 on the 19th. There is a formal program from 11 to 12. That's where we'll have speakers and the bagpipes and the trumpet and the singers. It's a silent memorial, so for all of the day, with the exception of the formal program, people can just move through the posters and observe. We'll have counselors and resources out in the hallway so that if someone is impacted, there will be someone there to support them. We'll have literature available for them, and they bring swag with them from the Black Poster Project. The day before is the dedicated student day, and I want to be clear again that that is not open to the general public, and that we will have a closed program for students from across the state.
I know if people want to follow along, we have the blackposterproject.com, so you can see all the information.
That's right, and we will be rolling out our communications materials very soon, and would love to send some materials over here to put up on the Chamber website.
Of course, yeah, the Chamber will continue to share
Wonderful.
this
great.
work, and people can keep
That's
up to
great.
date and engage with what you're doing. Ray, Catherine, thank you so much for being here today.
It was a
This
pleasure.
was a fantastic
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you for letting us talk about it.
Of course, we love hearing from people doing such amazing work in the community. We really appreciate everything you do. Thank you to everyone for listening to Build, Lead, Thrive, Voices of Androscoggin. We'll see you next time.
We're gonna get to know you. We're gonna talk it out. We're gonna get to know you and what you're all about. We're gonna get to know just what makes you feel alive. We're gonna get to know how you build, lead, and thrive.
Build, Lead, and Thrive. Voices of the Androscoggin.